Deuteronomy 30, verse 15. Moses charges the children of Israel. It gives them this choice. What did he say? Do you remember? Deuteronomy 30, verse 15. If you get there, you can read it, please. There's a choice. I've set before you life and death, good and evil. And if you go through that chapter at the end, he kind of gives them a charge. Choose life. Joshua 24:15. What does he say to the children of Israel there? Kind of up here on this screen. Choose this day whom you will serve. So choices. We've been talking about choices. We covered I choose to believe in God. Sunday, Wednesday, we're going to do some questions from there. We didn't get to that part yet. So just kind of recap, we looked at some different beliefs, and we talked about how we would evangelize to people who believe different than we do in terms of believing in God. So keep that in mind as we go about this class. Before we begin, I want to ask Derek, if you would, to lead us in prayer, please. Amen. Thank you. What does free moral agent mean for us? Do we react by instinct? Are we animals, or do we have... Hope not, right? Yeah. We have a choice, don't we? We have 2 outside cats at our house. What's the main reason you have an outside cat at your house?
Somebody inside the house doesn't want an inside cat.
There you go. Okay, give me something else. That's not really what I was looking for. But to catch mice, right? We have outside cats to catch mice. Do cats know that that's all they're supposed to catch? No, they don't. They have no idea. They're not discriminatory in what they catch. They catch a lot of different things at our house anyway. So we're not animals. We have the choice to choose between good and evil. I've added some other questions here. I hope they don't backfire on me to discuss. So why does God allow man to do evil things? Who?
Because he's graceful.
And I did that on purpose, that phrasing on purpose. Because he's graceful? Okay.
He could have created us with no opportunity to make any decisions, just pre-programmed to do the things that he set us to do. But he, in his grace, allowed us to make choices. Right. And in that allowance also, he's allowed us to show love, something that we would not be able to show if it wasn't a choice to be able to offer it.
Very good. I kind of get into that a little bit. I didn't want to stop you because you were rolling on, but kind of get into that. Who gets the blame in this line of questioning? With that question right there, why does God allow man to do evil things? Who gets the blame? God does. I mean, I got to blame somebody, right? It couldn't be my fault that I do bad things, right? So someone has to get the blame. So, as Kyle said, we have choice. We have grace. We have choice. What if God changed our personalities so that we could not sin? I think Kyle hit on it. What would that take away from us? Choice. We take away choice. Take away our free will. And at that point, we're just, I think you said robots, didn't you? We're automatically just robots at that point. Man was given the ability to choose. Could God intervene into every evil action in the world if he wanted to? No question. So, just some examples: drunk drivers, bullies, drug addicts, terrorists. It sounds awesome, right? What if God infringed upon the things that we wanted to do? In sin, yeah. It'd take away that freedom. We talk. Some people talk about greater evils versus lesser evils. You hear that phrase sometimes. But if you took away all the greater evils and left the lesser evil ones, hope that makes sense. So just some examples. If he stopped sexual affairs, but he didn't stop the things that led up to sexual affairs, like pornographic shows or other things. If he stopped all that, if he stopped true thieves, but not the times I wanted to cheat on my taxes or tell little white lies here and there. If he stopped acts of terrorism, but the indoctrination that causes someone to be a terrorist, we would not have the free will. Ultimately, it's a choice that we have to make. Should God remove those who commit evil and sin, commit evil or sin? I think we talked about this last class about Hitler. Should he?
I think if we answer yes to that, we have to admit that we're asking him to remove us.
Who would be left? Right? We've all sinned and fall short of the glory of God. Not a righteous man on the earth who does good and never sins. 1 John 1:18. If we say we have sinned, we know to deceive ourselves. So he created us a real world for us with real choices and real consequences. So we have a choice. And as we have it on the beginning there, choose this day who you're going to serve. Anything else on question 1? Anybody would like to add? Please.
So you mentioned that what if God took all the things that harm, all the things that are sinful in the world? Well, that's what he originally created.
Right.
And that's what he's told us he's creating again. The end of Revelation is the revealing of this city in which everything which harms and all things which are an abomination will not be able to enter. And he says the gates are always open on every side, and there's no need to shut them because it's always light. It's always we're always in the light of him. So he created that world. We tainted it with our choices, and he's going to create it again.
Yeah. I read someone made a comment that Adam and Eve were created innocent. They were, but they made the choice to sin. Anybody else? Question 2 in the book, why do you think we struggle with having a personal faith in God? I put some things up there that I thought about, but accountability. Sometimes we don't like to be accountable for the decisions that we make. Forgetfulness. How many times and I guess you could tie forgetfulness or ungratefulness in together. How many times was God forgotten from the children of Israel or just kind of disobedient? We don't like to think about the consequences of what got in store for us. Conscience, maybe our conscience, we don't want to have to deal with that. Commitment, maybe we have commitment issues with having a faith in God or others. Anybody got any thoughts on that? Okay. Mm-hmm.
So God's way is one way.
Right.
Which means you can't go your own way.
Right.
So nowadays everybody just wants to pursue whatever they want to pursue. They don't want somebody tell them exactly how to live their life, run the way they go, or whatever.
What makes me happy? We talked about humanism, and I guess they would fall in that category. Self-seeking, seeking your own happiness. So.
I think there's a lot of people that struggle with just the concept of faith in general, not necessarily faith in God,
Okay.
but believing that I have faith in anything.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not a religious word. It's just a descriptor of where we put our belief system, whether it be in the evolutionary model or in the Big Bang or in the creation account. Wherever we put that, it's faith in something. And I think the reason a lot of people struggle with having a faith in God is because they're presupposed to say, I don't believe in the supernatural. If I can't see it happen in front of me, if I can't comprehend it. I heard a video this morning of a guy saying, the reason I don't believe in Jesus is because it doesn't make sense for one person to be held accountable for the sins of, no judge would say, well, you did a crime, so I'm going to put this guy in jail for you.
Yeah.
He said, that just doesn't make sense to me, so I can't believe in that. So, there's a lot of biases that affect whether or not we can have faith in something that ultimately have to be overcome.
Yeah. It's good. Any other thoughts? Yes, sir.
Not really sure what category it falls in here, but I feel like I've seen or heard this a lot lately.
Okay.
Where it's maybe falls under patience, but those who don't see the fruit of their prayers being answered, or maybe in the time frame they feel like it should be answered in, and they begin to lose faith that God's there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of the lessons in here is trust when I don't understand. So I'm anxious to get into that when we get there, Lord. But yeah, you're right. You're right. Sometimes we know they're not answered, and then what we want and when we want it, sometimes it can shake our faith. So very good. Anyone else? Yes, please. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, sir.
I can't help but think that your choices is based on information.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't have God's information, the Word of God, you don't know what choices to make,
Right.
really. And some of them kind of innate. You might shouldn't be cruel to other people or something like that. That's kind of just common knowledge.
The golden rule.
Kind of part of it. But as far as making decisions, I don't know what I'm supposed to believe and repent and be baptized and confess and attend church and be good to my neighbor, not except it's taught.
Yeah.
And so it's knowledge.
Right. There's an expectation that God has for us to do
I
the.
changed my mind about a lot of things because I had new information.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. That's good. Thank you. Yes, sir.
I always thought about moral accountability. People always presuppose to either believe in God or to not believe in God.
Right.
At a basic level. And at least the people that I've encountered in my life is they choose to not believe in God. The evidence is there for them. And it's really hard to refute that using the basic scientific method.
Right.
The scientific method doesn't hold up. And you cannot prove that evolution works on a grand level. It doesn't make sense. You cannot prove that rock layering is how it is, and you can't account for 160 million plus years.
Yeah.
You can't prove God.
Yeah.
On one aspect, but then on the other aspect, you really can't.
Yeah, you can. Right.
You look close enough. So I've always thought, well, moral accountability, that's number one. Why would I have a buddy that wants to be an atheist?
Right.
Look around you. Look at everything. Look how intricate it is.
Yeah.
How could we deny a God? And then if we accept that God, then that implies that we have to make moral decisions according to those laws. Some people want absolutely nothing to do that, especially this day and age, that don't want to be told what to do. They don't want anybody to infringe on their so-called freedom.
Yeah.
It's a tough environment we live in right now.
And we look at that sometimes like, I don't want to be told what to do. I don't want anybody to step on my freedoms. But the reality is, what God is doing for us is keeping us safe. He puts kind of, I don't say barriers, not really barriers. That's a bad word for that. But he gives us direction to go, a path to walk for the salvation of our souls. So, yeah, it's good. Oops. 3 questions a man. Let's see. I summarize that, and it doesn't make sense up there. 3 questions about man have been: who am I? Why am I here? Where am I going? Speak to our origin, purpose, and destiny. How do these 3 questions relate to one's belief in God? Any thoughts there? That's pretty deep. For me, anyway. I don't know if y'all remember Kenny Moorer, who spoke here. I think it was in 2017. Anyway, the first time of the first class of the gospel meeting, he said he leads with this. He does a lot of evangelizing in prisons. He leads with this this question in those prison things. And he asked us, he said, if you were on an island, you woke up by yourself, nobody there but you, what questions would you ask? And one of the questions I asked was, what am I going to eat? And that wasn't what he was looking for. But that thought crossed my mind. But who am I? Why am I here? Where am I going? How does that relate to one's belief in God? Yep. Exactly. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's very good. Yeah, we're spiritual beings. And what does that mean for us? We're spiritual beings. And how should I behave while I'm here? And, that's really good. Anybody else? That could be a sermon, Kyle, couldn't it? Is it good? No, I got you. Jeremiah said this if somebody wants to turn there to Jeremiah 29, verse 13. What condition does Jeremiah give in order for our search for God to be successful? Yeah, seek and find, search for me with all your heart. So, very, very good. I'm missing page 2 of my notes. I don't know where they went. But yeah, you will seek and find me, seek me with all your heart. James 4:8 tells us to draw near to God. So seeking God, as we talked about, why am I here? We have to seek and understand why we're here. Earth is a perfect distance from the sun to support life. Is that a coincidence? Psalms 19:1-4 says, the heavens declare the glory of God, and the sky above proclaims his handiwork. Day to day pours out his speech, and night to night reveals knowledge. There is no speech, nor are there words whose voice is not heard. Their voice goes out through all the earth, and their words to the earth, the world. In them he has set a tent for the sun. I put this up, and Ryan, you made me think of this when you were commenting there. A lot of study goes into the study of our Earth and solar system. A lot of money. Let's just say money, not study. A lot of money goes into the study of our Earth and solar system. In 2021, I think it was $23.3 billion into the solar system study and the Earth study. And why do you think we spend so much time and money investing in evolution study and solar system studies? And NASA's given us a lot of cool stuff, but I don't know if it's worth $23.3 billion to get a hair dryer. Didn't they invent hair dryers and things like that? What do you think? Mm-hmm.
Never-ending rabbit hole.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to keep spending money to find an answer that's for something that's not there.
Yeah, exactly.
They're trying to do anything they can scientifically, technology to find a solution that is different than what others think.
Mm-hmm.
Or trying to actually make something factual that's always been there. And it's just, it's not there. It's not there. I don't care whatever comes about. It's something you can't produce something from nothing.
Right. It's a constant search to see if I can refute the existence of God, and if I can do that, if I can think all this stuff's an accident, then I don't have to answer to somebody eventually down the road for my actions and things. To me, that's how I kind of think of it. So, any other thoughts on question number 5? Question 6. How do you explain that man has an inherent desire to worship? Seen throughout history and in every culture, could it be that because man is a rational being, he's able to discern his surroundings and come to a common sense conclusion? Someone greater than man did all of this. And does not that admission prompt you to worship? Discuss. What do you think? Why are we prone to worship? Anybody have any thoughts on that?
Well, when you look at the pagan gods and mythology. Some of the greatest stories of the pagan gods surround mankind's heartbreak, tragic events, things that are going on, death in a family, loss of young life. These sorts of things are oftentimes connected. And even the gods of the Bible that we read about, Baal and Ashtaroth, we're talking about fertility gods and harvest gods. And why do we reach out to these things? Because we see our insignificance. We see that I can't control whether this child may survive or not. I can't control whether the crop is going to come and produce and we're going to have food or we're going to have famine.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not in control, and we seek that. We seek something greater than ourselves because we feel like there must be something. I think it's not a new creation, but it's certainly heralded very loudly today that's silly that man feels that way, feels like there must be something bigger than us, and that somehow that's a perversion to growth and to becoming more technologically advanced.
Mm-hmm.
But at the heart of it, I think a lot of times what has happened is society just looks around, sees things are not good, and they don't tend to get better, and go, there's got to be something to give me hope.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to, even if I have to create it, I'm going to try to find that thing that gives me hope.
Yeah. You mentioned control. We all probably deal with control in some form or fashion. If something's not happening the way you think it should happen, and the time frame should happen, and how it should happen, I mean, what do? Take matters into our own hands. So that's a really good point. So we don't wait and be patient. Any other thoughts? That one was a deep one. I was anxious to hear other people's questions. So Domino's question, the question is, let me read this for you. Who would open a garage with thousands of dominoes standing on end to end in perfect order succession and exclaim, "Wow, what blew up in here?" If you said no one, you would be right. Yet smart people use that as a plausible theory to explain man's origins and surroundings. What is the psalmist's conclusion in 14, verse 1? What does the fool say? There is no God. They are corrupt. They do abominable deeds. There is none who does good. I think we talked about that Wednesday night about evolution and how to evangelize to someone who has that belief. So that's in essence why money is spent and everything, because there is no, they claim that there is no God. So any thoughts about question number 7 as we move along? Last question on lesson 1. I'm not sure I believe in God. And a former Christian to the dismay of others. Then it came out that he was having a relationship with a woman other than his wife. Why is immorality such a convenient excuse to claim disbelief in God? You could put other things in there too, but he chose immorality.
For God, there wouldn't be any regulations on immorality.
That's right. You could just do.
You wouldn't be violating it.
Right.
The laws.
You could do whatever you want to do, right? Just go about doing whatever.
He wouldn't have any accountability.
Exactly. That's
In his mind.
That's where I was thinking. I'm not accountable to anyone, so I'm just going to say there's no God. That's easy. It's easy to just make a blanket statement, and so I'm not accountable.
The level at which people will own that too
Mm-hmm.
is oftentimes heartbreaking. There was a young man that used to lead studies, give Wednesday night invitations, was very active in the church, just in encouraging and sacrificing things in his life to make sure that he's going to be there. There's no other explanation for why he was the way he was except he believed in God.
Mm-hmm.
Until he got a job that had friends that were not a good influence on him, and he was trying to decide, how do I balance this? How do I spend time and do the things that my friends want me to do? The ultimate decision he made was, I never believed in God. I just was going through the motions. It was all a show.
Yeah.
And in that, now I can easily sacrifice something because I'm just going to assign it no value.
Right.
And I can lay it aside and say, okay, I can do what I want to do now.
Yeah. You've detached from that deity, that rule set, so to speak. So you're not accountable to it. So yeah. Yes, sir.
Without commandments of God, it would kind of fall secondary to what does the law of the land say in this scenario. And in this scenario, the law of the land doesn't care about sexual immorality.
Yep.
So there's some consequences of violating man's law that are pretty severe. I mean, you steal, you may go to jail. You kill, you may get the death sentence.
Mm-hmm.
But there's other areas where it violates God's law, but according to man's law, it's really more of like a what's that?
Yeah.
Such a good idea, but
Yeah. It's not that big of a deal. It's not that big of a deal. That's the attitude of some people. But and we talked about, I think Wednesday nights, there's cultures out there that align with different things that we believe. There's cultures out there that say you shouldn't commit murder, you shouldn't steal, things like that. That came down from God. That's the origin of all those laws. So, yeah, just a complete. If I don't have to answer to anybody, there's no accountability for what I do. So, any other thoughts? Mm-hmm.
They search and try to find in the scripture the way they'll get him out of this.
Yeah.
They can. So he's not fair.
Mm-hmm.
He's not right. And I think they kind of did that, and that's why they moved that.
Mm-hmm.
But they had to make it right, and they want this, and they want this.
Yeah.
So that's how they look at it.
Yeah, that's a good point. We have a tendency to look for loopholes, don't we? In a lot of different ways. Let's see if I can find a way how I don't have to do this or whatever. I used to work with a guy one time that we had computers on the third floor and he was on the second floor, and he found out, he spent 3 hours trying to how to remote into the upstairs computer, so he went to walk up there and go like, you could went up there, 5 times or, whatever, by the time you research how to do it. Just we constantly try to find a way to make things easier, try to find loopholes. So, anybody want to say anything about this lesson, or sum it up? Not sum it up, but I mean, any other thoughts you'd like to share before we move on to lesson 2?
the immorality in that certain situation, there's no immediate consequence.
Uh-huh.
Like it was in the Old Testament,
Yeah.
or even in other countries today, where if you steal something, cut your hand off.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And in the Old Testament, God struck you down.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
he's not gonna do that.
Yeah. You'd be stoned or things like that. Right. There's not an immediate consequence. Yeah. I hadn't thought about that. That's really good. Okay. Lesson 2, to believe in God's word. Where do we go to find out what God expects from us? The author asks, do you ask a tree or the sun or the sky what God expects from us? It's not. Of course not. We look to His word. If someone wants to read Psalm 19, 7 through 11, it's up there if you can read it, but if you could turn there and read that for us, please.
The law of the Lord is perfect, reviving the soul. The testimony of the Lord is sure, making wise the simple. The precepts of the Lord are right, rejoicing the heart. The commandment of the Lord is pure, enlightening the eyes. The fear of the Lord is clean, enduring forever. The rules of the Lord are true and righteous altogether. More to be desired are they than gold, even much fine gold, sweeter also than honey and the drippings of the honeycomb. Moreover, by them is your servant warned. In keeping them there is great reward.
Thank you. Hebrews 1, 1 through 2 says, long ago and many times and in many ways God spoke to our fathers by the prophets. And in these last days He has spoken to us by His Son, who He appointed the heir of all things, through whom He also created the world. The value of God's word words. More to be desired than they than gold. It's the same Hebrew word used in Genesis 3:6 when Eve desired to eat the apple to make her wise. The same word used there. More to be desired are they than gold. Is it any kind of gold? What's the difference between gold and fine gold? Got to be something, right? Mm-hmm. Pure gold, refined, completely absent of any impurities whatsoever. Same word used in Hebrews, Hebrew word used in Proverbs 8:19. My fruit is better than gold, even fine gold, and my yield than choice silver. The same word described the bride's beloved in Song of Solomon 5:22. His head is the finest gold. His locks are wavy, black as a raven. So, ladies, if you, I don't think I qualify for this because I don't have a long wavy locks. So I'm just gold, not fine as gold. So if you have wavy locks, black as a raven, your head's fine as gold. So sweeter also than honey. What was the description that God gave Moses from the burning bush about this land he was taking his people to? It was flowing with milk and honey. So, the words of God are profitable. 1 Timothy 3 tells us that. There are many uses for that. Matthew 4:4 tells us it's equally as important as food. Some words Moses urged the people to take heart in Deuteronomy 32, verses 46 and 47. So the Word of God, I think we'd all agree, is a treasure for all of us to desire, to seek. It's better than fine gold and sweeter than honey. So as we think about that, go through that this lesson, let's keep that in mind. He goes through the bibliographical test. Does anybody know where they were on July 7th, 2013? You know? We were here. It was a Sunday. Dr. John Moore gave a lesson on the reliability of the Word of God, so I don't think he's here, but I'm going to be borrowing a lot of his things from his lesson. It's still out there on our website if you want to take the time and go listen to a more educated man go through in it than me. So just some things to think about here. The number of copies, the bibliographical test is the number of copies. The more copies, the more opportunity to compare, determine the accuracy of the text. The time interval between the original and the existing copies, how much time has elapsed from the original to the earliest copy, and the degree of accuracy of the copies. So we're going to look at some writings of antiquity and compare them to the Bible with this test. So hang with me here. It's going to be a lot of stuff we're just going to be talking about. Give me 1 second here, get caught up with my notes. Homer's Iliad. Has anybody ever read this? You read it? A little bit? I know nothing about it other than what I found on the internet. It's an epic poem of 24 books traditionally attributed to the ancient Greek poet Homer. It takes the Trojan War as its subject through the Greek warrior Achilles as its primary focus. I found this on Barnes & Noble about the sales rank of how popular this book is, and I don't know if that's a universal number, if that's just strictly about to Barnes & Noble's website and what they sell. So just keep that in mind. The number of copies of that manuscript was 643. I think this number was 2000 or in the 90s. Now they've come up with 1,757 out there. It was originally written in 800 BC. The time interval between the original and the existing copies, the earliest copies was 400 BC. So there's 400 years between the date it was written and the manuscript that we have now. The degree of accuracy of these copies. The differences and this is a quote from a website that I got. The differences in the ancient copies copied by medieval scribes, combined with their own transcription errors and editorial decisions make it very difficult to sort out relationships among the manuscript text. In the West, where there was almost no knowledge of Greek, scholars and others had to rely on familiarity with epics of the Iliad Latina, an abridgment in Latin of Homer's Iliad, and other accounts of the Trojan War, and dubious, had to look that word up, that means suspect, or as the kids say today, sus, authenticity. With the invention of printing in the mid-15th century, the transmission of the Homer text entered a new phase. Editors could choose from manuscripts if they had access to them. One or more previously printed editions, despite the apparent stability and fixity of print, Homer and print chronicles the enduring debate about which text is closest to the real Homer, or at least the best that they could come up with. So, another quote that I found: "Is there any evidence of that Achilles is real? There's no proof that he existed, and any of Homer's other characters did. A long answer that Homer's Achilles may have been based on at least in part, on a historical character. The same is true of the rest of Homer's characters." So, as we look at something and I guess that's highly used in colleges and things of that nature, but that's where that one stands in the bibliographical test. And we're going to look at one more. Caesar's Gallic Wars. Campaigns in the Roman proconsul Julius Caesar conquered Gaul, clad in the blood-red cloak he usually wore as he distinguished mark of battle. Caesar led his troops to victories throughout the province, and his major triumph being defeat in the Gallic army led by Chieftain, whatever that guy's name is. In 52 BCE, Caesar described these campaigns in the Gallic Wars. I couldn't find a popularity of that one anywhere. The number of copies, originally written in 144 BC, the number of copies that were out there in the 90s, I think, were 10. Now there's 251. The time frame between the original manuscript and the earliest copy is somewhere around 1,000 years. The degree of accuracy: Caesar's commentaries of the Gallic Wars contain some of the most complete descriptions of Gaul and the people that lived there. But they aren't necessarily exact histories. They were written as memoirs, and Caesar was fighting the wars in part to boost his own political career, so it makes sense to take his words with a pinch of salt. What's a memoir? I had to look that one up.
Collection of your memories.
Yeah, it's your account. So my memoir would be how I saw it, how I viewed it. And it said that he was doing this war, he was fighting this war to boost his political career. So, you think he may have inflated himself just a little bit? I mean, that'd be hard not to, wouldn't it, if you're writing about yourself. And now we get to the New Testament as it relates to the bibliographical test. Do anybody have any comments? I know this is just a lot of information I'm throwing at you. Please just raise your hand or stop me. The New Testament, dates written around 500 to 100 AD. There are 5,600 plus copies. The time interval between the original and the exact copies. The earliest manuscript we have is 130 AD. So 40 years or less between the original and the existing copy. The degree of accuracy of the copies in comparative trivialities, such as change of order, the insertion or omission of the article with proper names and the like, are set aside. The words, in our opinion, still subject to doubt, can hardly amount for more than 1,000th part of the New Testament. And this is from John's actual lesson. Even with 25,000 New Testament manuscripts, they are so close that we will virtually claim 97-98% of the New Testament. We can virtually certain. For the remaining 2 to 3, almost 1/2 and 1 and 2 word variants for spelling, add the, etc. None of these affect doctrine whatsoever. Those are some of the antiquity writings. We talked about the Iliad and we talked about the Gallic Wars, but you see some of these others. The original date that was written, the earliest manuscript that we have, and the time gap between each of those. It's fascinating. There's only 40 years or less, I think, between the original New Testament and the earliest manuscript that we have. So it's fascinating to me that they could come up with information with that much time between the original manuscript and the one that they've written. So pretty fascinating stuff if you think about it. The reliability of the Bible, lots of time in the past, we looked at the words of antiquity compared to scriptures. There's a lot of different papyrus out there that we have. This is called John Ryland's fragment. It's one generation from the original. So this is John 18, that's written on this papyrus. Somewhere around 90 to 100 AD when it was written. So one generation removed from that original. This one found contains most of the New Testament, and contains all 4 Gospels and Acts. This one was pretty fascinating. This one contains all 4 Gospels and Acts, most of the New Testament. This one, you can't see it from here, but I think it's 1 Corinthians that's on this papyrus. This one contains the whole book and earliest manuscripts of Jude, 1st and 2nd Peter. And Kyle has talked about this, 3 oldest books in the world in some of his lessons, the Codex Vaticanus, Sinaiticus, and then the Alexandrian manuscript. Contains most of the Bible and date from 325 to 350 AD, so 250 years, 3 years from the New Testament originals. So as we compare the different things to the number of copies and the others of antiquity, here's a quote that John had in one of his slides. In contrast with these figures and other ancient works, the textual critic of the New Testament is embarrassed by the wealth of material. Furthermore, the work of many ancient authors who have been preserved only in manuscripts that date from the Middle Ages, sometimes the late Middle Ages, far removed from the time at which they lived and wrote. On the contrary, the time between the composition of the books, the New Testament, and the earliest extant copies is relatively brief. Instead of a lapse of millennium or more, as is the case of not a few classical authors, several papyrus manuscripts and portions of the New Testament are extant that were copied with a century or so after the composition of the original articles. So, original documents. So, 40 years between there. These are different translations that we have that come from the New Testament. I don't know how many people can read any of these. Armenian was translated 2,000 plus times. Coptic, I'm not even sure what that is, 975 times. Gothic, Ethiopian, Latin, Syriac, Georgian, Slavic. No book compares to the bibliographical test for reliability in the Bible. Here's just some other numbers about some manuscripts, about the sheer amount that's out there. This asterisk is interesting. These traditional listings of Old Testament manuscripts normally leave out all the abundant scroll evidence. It is not easy to determine the exact number of extant scrolls following the intelligent estimates. Just a lot of information out there. 87,000 between the Old and the New Testament, different things. So I come to this question. Sorry, that was a lot of information to come to this question. If skeptics reject the transmission of the New Testament Bible as unreliable, all 24,362 copies, Greek manuscripts, and translations, why aren't other manuscripts of antiquity met with equal skepticism?
Because those other documents hold no bearing over their life.
Yeah, exactly. The Iliad and the Gallic Wars, they don't tell me what to do. They're just memoirs or other thing. But isn't it interesting how fine, how much the New Testament is combed and combed and combed and combed and combed? And there we have the original manuscripts in terms of the time frame between. So, sorry, that was a lot of just me talking. So, we'll take up there in Wednesday, Lord willing. So, appreciate your comments.
Thank you, Brad.
Thank you.